Come join us as we head to northern Montana to visit Glacier National Park. And then we drive even further north to Alberta, Canada to visit Waterton Lakes National Park. Now joining me on this adventure, of course, are Lexi and Ashley, who love mountains and hiking, and my parents, who love any opportunity to get out and see the world. But if I'm being honest, I'm most looking forward to being able to finally see a moose.
Our home is in Florida, so after a long flight and a long drive and a million are we there yet, we finally made it to St. Mary's Lodge, just outside of Glacier National Park.
After taking in the stunning views outside of our room at the St. Mary's Lodge, we decided to take on the Going to the Sun Road.
We stocked up on Huckleberry Liquors, and then we drove to St. Mary's Lake to see Wild Goose Island and a bald eagle.
Next, we continued to climb to over 6,500 feet up to Logan Pass, where we saw some bighorn sheep.
6,500 feet? That's like 165 school buses!
Touring Lake McDonald, Glacier National Park's largest lake at over 10 miles long, we learned all about the devastating fire that took place in 2017.
Unfortunately, over 1,500 acres was burned down in this devastating fire, but now there's a new forest starting to grow.
We got out our passports as we arrived at the Canadian border on the way to Waterton Lakes National Park.
Welcome to Canada! Bonjour!
We got quite the language lesson, as some of the Canadians in this area speak French.
We pulled up to the Prince of Wales Hotel, which overlooks the town of Waterton. It was built in 1927 by the Great Northern Railway. Now, why the heck was it named the Prince of Wales Hotel?
Great question, Lexi. It was named after Edward, Prince of Wales, who later became King Edward VIII. Another fun fact, Queen Elizabeth stayed there in 1973.
Wow, no way! We stayed in room 214, which, funny enough, is my parents' wedding anniversary. The room is so old-fashioned, if I do say so myself, which I do.
The next morning, Ashley took on the most challenging hike in all of Waterton, Crypt Lake.
The hike is almost 11 miles, and to top that, you can only get there by boat. My mom saw some very scary grizzly bear scat. Imagine how scared she was.
The trail gains over 2,200 feet in elevation, and as Lexi mentioned, the only way to get to the trailhead is by scheduled ferry service, and you have to wait until the ferry returns to get back.
While Mom was on the hike, Dad and I did Red Rock Canyon. We'll let you enjoy some of the things we did in Red Rock Canyon.
This mile-and-a-half hike traverses a canyon made up of sedimentary rock called argillite, formed over 1.5 billion years ago. As you can probably see, this was Lexi's favorite part of the entire trip. She got to climb over all of these rocks and go down all the natural water slides. Take a look at the scenery on the way to Blackiston Falls. You can see the forest is regrowing here as well after a fire.
Wave to the Mounties as we head to Cameron Lake. Unfortunately, some humans left trash on the table that the deer were eating. Make sure when you're done with your trash to throw it away so this does not become a problem.
No moose here at Cameron Lake, but just take a look at these sunset views. The next morning was absolutely gorgeous. We took a ride on Waterton Lake, which sits on the Continental Divide and the border between the US and Canada.
Hey Dad, what's a continental divide?
The Continental Divide is a boundary that runs from north to south and divides the Earth's waterways. All rivers on the east side of the divide flow east, and all rivers on the west side flow west.
Wow, that's pretty neat. Guess what? I'm skipping rocks in Goat Haunt, Montana. See these berries? They're called thimbleberries. They're actually edible. Would you try them? Tell me in the comments below. We're doing Red Rock Canyon again, baby, but this time with my mom and my grandma and grandpa, Gigi and Weepaw, and with my dad again. I'm doing the cold plunge in Red Rock Canyon's water. It's about 43 degrees, at least it feels like that.
Hey, take a look at these juvenile bighorn sheep we saw on the way back. And this herd of bison being reintroduced into the park. Until these bison are released back into the wild, they live on Blackfoot tribal land just outside the park. Pat's Corner store in Waterton has everything, including some Ted Lasso type inspiration as we rented bikes for a trail ride.
We had our bear spray locked and loaded. Hey, bear!
While Lexi was pedaling her traditional bike, the rest of us had e-bikes. Now this was my first time on an e-bike ever. Somehow I got up to 30 miles an hour on the way back from our 16.5-mile trip. Now making our way back into Waterton, we decided it was time to head back south down to Glacier. Now what happened next was probably the most epic part of the entire trip. After crossing back into the US into Glacier National Park, out the window we were able to see a grizzly bear. The National Park Service reports there are about 300 grizzlies living in Glacier National Park. That's more than any other national park outside of Alaska. I think Lexi's favorite part of this trip, well, really any trip that she goes on, is when she gets to go horseback riding. I'm not sure you could ever beat the backdrop of the Many Glacier Hotel at sunset. Now this is Fisher Camp Lake. It's about a mile and a half from our hotel, and the moose love to feed here in the evenings. Or at least so we're told. I mean, at this point, I'm feeling like the moose know when I'm coming and don't come out. All right, the next day was finally time for our big hike of the trip to Iceberg Lake. It was about 10 miles out and back, and about 30 minutes in, we saw a cow and then a bull moose cross the trail right in front of us.
Thank goodness Mike finally saw his moose. Pretty sure we were all more excited for Mike than for ourselves.
I know I was happy I didn't have to wake up at sunrise the next morning to head to Fisher Camp Lake to look for him.
Make sure if you see a moose that you're at least 50 feet away from it. If you encounter one, make sure that your presence is known and you back away slowly and talk normally. If it tries to charge you, make sure you hide behind something solid, like a tree, or in your vehicle or a building. Stay safe whenever you encounter or see a moose.
Good point, Lex. I agree. If you ever see a moose, follow Lex's advice. We were all proud of ourselves that we made it to Ptarmigan Falls, or Parmesan Falls as we kept calling it, and then we all started the gentle climb up to Iceberg Lake. While Mom and Dad turned around just before the storms came in, Lexi, Ashley, and I were too tempted by the sight of the lake, which was now in view, and kept going. And this is Iceberg Lake, named after the ice that would frequently be found floating in the water. Nowadays, however, the ice is only found on the cliffs of Mount Wilbur and Iceberg Peak, which surround the lake. So about 15 minutes after we got there, the clouds rolled in and it started to pour. Thankfully, Lexi and I had our rain gear, but Ashley had to use an emergency blanket from our first aid kit to stay dry. We hid under a tree, and when it slowed down, we booked it down the 1,500 feet down the mountain. So now if you listen closely, you can hear the girls singing Broadway show tunes to let the bears know we were in the area, since there really wasn't anybody else around. The Mini Glacier Hotel restaurant was pretty tasty, but I think the star of the show was definitely the views. Now on our last full day inside the park, we decided to go on one more hike around Lake Josephine all the way to Grinnell Lake, which is fed by the Grinnell Glacier. Now the lake gets its incredible turquoise green color from all the silt that runs down from the Grinnell Glacier above. And Ashley decided to challenge herself once again by doing part of the Grinnell Glacier hike, which climbs more than 2,000 feet. The trail also overlooks the beautiful Grinnell Lake below.
As we took our 5-mile hike back to the Mini Glacier Hotel, we noticed it was quite the berry season.
Grizzlies are known to eat up to 200,000 berries per day, so we definitely had our hands on our bear spray.
Exactly. After taking that long hike, it was relaxing to take a bath while looking at the mountains.
We really wanted to find some bighorn sheep, so we took the Go Into the Sun road back to Logan Pass at sunset. We didn't see any sheep, but we did stumble across another moose.
Dad, you're acting so relaxed after seeing 3 moose in one trip.
Now these views with the setting sun bouncing off the top of the mountains, simply breathtaking. It's truly amazing that the United States and Canada came together to create the very first International Peace Park and World Heritage Site between Glacier National Park and Waterton Lakes National Park.
We said goodbye to the Mini Glacier Hotel and hello to the car as we drove to the Bozeman Airport. We saw a black bear on the beach. We're excited to see our dog, Archer, but we will always have this vacation in our hearts. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. Remember to like and subscribe.